Aloha and welcome to the G'day Sally show. It's Saturday night at 7 o'clock. And aloha, g'day and welcome. You're on K108 and I'm Sally Squires reading some scintillating stories from my books. And I've written more than 100 stories for children. So far they're in 6 books. I'm actually writing more books. I've also got some books for adults. And you can check them all out on g'daysally.com. That's GDAYSALLY.com. So tonight I'm going to be reading some stories and poems from my books. And don't forget you can send in your stories and your poems, and I'd love to read them out. Just send them in to the G'day Sally show or just to Sally, Post Office Box 37126 in Honolulu, Hawaii 96837. And the lovely Mary and Alex will put them in my post office box and I'll read them out. Don't forget to put your name on them and your age. So one of my books is called The Story Tree. And it's kind of interesting because the story tree was a very, very, very old tree, 1,000 years or more old. The reason it was called the story tree was because over the past 1,000 years it had collected a lot of stories. Where do the stories come from, I can hear you ask? Well, you see, the story tree had a secret. What was its secret, I can hear you ask? Well, the secret of the story tree was that it was a very good listener. Yes, you heard me correctly, the story tree was a very good listener. So every day, when all the morning birds arrived to sit on the branches of the story tree, they would all tell the story tree a story about where they'd been and what they'd seen. And being a very good listener, the story tree listened to their stories and remembered every detail and every word. And every evening, when all the evening birds arrived to sit on the branches of the story tree, they would all tell the story tree a story about where they'd been and what they'd seen. Now, the story tree would store all their stories quite carefully in its branches and leaves, and when a bird would land on a branch, it would tell the story tree a story, and then, in return, the story tree would give the bird another story. That seems fair, don't you think? So one day I met the story tree. In fact, I had a cup of tea just under its branches. And the story tree told me some of the stories that the birds had brought to the story tree and that it had stored quite carefully in its branches and in its leaves. So each of the stories in my book, The Story Tree, has been told by a bird to the story tree because it's a very good listener. And if you see the cover on the book, there is the story tree there, and it's a photograph actually of a tree that I found in Nha Trang in Vietnam. And you'll see it's got eyes and it's got a nose and it's got a face, which is really interesting because it's a real tree. So the first story I'm going to read tonight is a story from The Story Tree, and it's called Miss Chickadee's Secret Desire. Miss Chickadee loved those shoes. She couldn't wait to get up in the morning, fly down out of her nest, dig deep down under the layers of large leaves where she'd hidden them the night before, and carefully, ever so carefully and gently, reach down into that pillowy pile and pull out those twinkly, winkly dancing shoes. She didn't mind all the other birds watching her. All she could think about was those blue, powdery blue as the soft sky on a summer's day blue, new blue-hued dancing shoes. Where would a bird get a pair of soft blue dancing shoes, I can hear you ask? Well, I'll tell you. A fairy princess gave them to her. How did Miss Chickadee meet a fairy princess, I can hear you ask? Well, I'll tell you. One day, Miss Chickadee was taking a nap after her seed supper, and she looked up through the twinkly night light through the large leaves of her nesting tree when she saw something or someone falling through the sky, down towards her. I must catch them, she thought. She hurriedly picked up 2 of the largest leaves and held them tightly together in front of her. Whoosh, flump went the air as the falling person hit the large leaves, which bounced a bit. Oh, thank you for saving me, said the sweetest face Miss Chickadee had ever seen. A face with a smile like a sunny sunbeam, and the greenest, twinkliest green eyes that Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious, for that was her full name, had ever seen. No worries, are you all right? Asked Miss Chickadee. I am now, said her visitor. Let me introduce myself. I am Princess Popolopolello, and as you can see, I'm a fairy. Very pleased to meet you, Princess Popolopolello, said Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious. How did you come to fall through the sky? Weren't your wings working? A wicked wizard wired up my wings with spider's web so they wouldn't work. That's terrible, said Miss Chickadee. What can I do to help? That's very kind of you, but I need to find a friendly spider so I can get them to unweave this web and release my wings, said Princess Popolopolello. My best friend is a spider, said Miss Chickadee. I'm sure she'd be happy to help. So Miss Chickadee rapped very hard on the door in the branch in the tree where her friend Saladumpty Spider lived. It wasn't far to go because Saladumpty Spider lived right next door to Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious. Saladumpty Spider said she'd be happy to help. So she leant down very close to Princess Popolopolello, and she found the end thread of the web that the wicked wizard had wound around the fairy's wings. Saladumpty made a sucking sound, and as Miss Chickadee watched in amazement, the web began to unwind and to disappear into the spider's mouth. Finally, when the last of the web had unwound, the fairy princess's wings started to fully unfold. As the sunbeams caught the colours of her wings, they lit up like a rainbow, with silvery sparks flecked through. "Oh, that feels better," said Princess Popolopolillo. "I would like to reward you both for saving me and unravelling my wings." "Oh, there's no need to do that," said Saladumpty. "I was happy to do it. I needed some more web for my new spider web, and I was too tired to spin it myself. This spider silk has come at just the right time," and off she went to add the spidery silk to her new web. Princess Popolopolello turned to Miss Chickadee. "I'd like to give you something to thank you for catching me," she said. "I don't need anything, thank you," said Miss Chickadee. "I have everything I need. I can fly anywhere I wish, anytime I wish. I have my favourite feathery nest in my favourite tree. I have my best friend Saladumpty next door. I have fields and fields of flowers and grass with all sorts of delicious and sweet seeds to eat. No, I don't need anything, thank you." Princess Popolopolello smiled. "I'm so glad that you have everything you need, but isn't there something that your heart secretly desires?" Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious thought for a moment. She did have a secret desire, but she was not sure if she should tell the fairy princess what it was. "And what was Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious's secret desire, I can hear you ask? Well, I'll tell you. One day, many moons ago, Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious had been flying through the sunlit forest. Suddenly, a flash of the most brilliant blue caught her eye. She quickly flew over to the tree where the blue had flashed from, and, hiding behind a large leaf, she settled down quietly on a branch and waited. Suddenly, she saw the flash of blue again, and again, and again. Hopping carefully, she crept closer to the flash of blue, and then at last she could see what it was. And what was making the flash of blue, I can hear you ask? Well, I'll tell you. A beautiful, iridescent blue bird of paradise was practicing his dancing. His feathers fluffed up as he danced his dazzling dance, and the flash of his brilliant blueness glittered and gleamed through the trees and shone across the branch where Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious was perched. "I do wish I could dance like that," she thought, "but I'm not a bird of paradise and I don't know how to dance." So Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious tucked up her secret desire in a faraway feathered corner of her heart and said a quiet farewell to the wondrous dancing bird of paradise. She turned to the fairy princess, and screwing up her courage, she said, "I would love to be able to dance like that flashing feathery bird of paradise I once saw." "Leave it to me," said the fairy princess, and with that she waved a fond farewell to Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious, who watched her disappear among the fluffy white clouds. And then what happened, I can hear you ask? Well, I'll tell you. The very next morning, when Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious woke up, she looked down to where her feet were, and guess what she saw? Yes, you are exactly right. Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious could see a beautiful pair of exquisite blue as the blue sky dancing shoes, the kind of shoes she had never seen before. These shoes looked alive. Why, they looked as if they winked at her, and I believe that is exactly what they did, because they were covered in a glorious group of glitter gems, and as the sunbeams started to play across the glorious group of glittery gems, the shoes attached themselves to Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious's feet, and she began to dance. Right there on the biggest branch, right there under the largest leaves, right there in her favourite tree. And when her best friend Saladumpty Spider wove her web to wander through the woods today, she could not believe her spidery eyes. "Why, Miss Chickadee, you're dancing," said Saladumpty. "Why, Saladumpty Spider, I do believe I am," said Miss Chickadee. And she was so happy as she tried to remember all the steps that she had seen that brilliant bird of paradise dance. So from then on, whenever the sunbeams or the moonbeams or the silvery starlight touched those gloriously glittery gem-covered shoes, Miss Chickadee Sunshine Delicious's secret desire would come true, and she would dance and dance just like that beautiful blue as the sky bird of paradise. So you might have seen some birds of paradise. They really are absolutely stunning. They're gorgeous and blue. We have a lot of them in Queensland in the north of Australia. And just in case you haven't guessed, I come from Australia, from the west actually, from Perth in Western Australia. And people don't believe me when I tell them that my state is 8 times bigger than Texas. It's a third the size of the United States, so it's a really large lump of Australia, and it's only got about 4 million people in it, so there's lots of space. Now the next story I'm going to read you, I'm not going to tell you the title until the end of the story, and it comes from my book Nick Knock Knack. So there's lots of great stories in Nick Knock Knack, and if you check out my website g'daysally.com, you'll see more about Nick Knock Knack. So as I said, you'll have to wait till the end till I tell you what the title is. Whenever I go to the museum, I see him. He hides behind the curtains in the big room. The big room is where the dinosaurs live, but they're all dead. They're just bones, you know, not skin, just dry old bones, except for him. I think that's why he hides, because he knows he should be dead, but he isn't. He's alive, so he hides. I talk to him, and he winks at me, and one day he just followed me home. I hid him in the cupboard under the stairs. He likes peanuts and tomatoes and cabbage, and sometimes he drinks my dad's beer. Yesterday he followed me to school. He walked right up the steps and into the classroom. The teacher wasn't angry, but she looked at me strangely. "You really should know this. I shouldn't have to tell you. You mustn't bring a dinosaur to class." I explained it to him, and he understood. He said he would not follow me into school ever again. And so every day he would wait behind some bushes and join me as I walked home. We had a lot of adventures because it was a long way home, and there were fields and streams and hills to climb. I used to hide my fishing pole in an old hollow log just beneath the cottonwood tree so we could fish after school. The first time we went was a disaster. He got so excited every time he saw a fish in the water that finally he fell in, and then he couldn't work out how to climb back up the bank, so I had to go in and push him out. Got my school clothes all wet, and my mother was not pleased. She wouldn't even listen to why, so I gave up trying to explain. One day he wasn't there when school got out. I walked all around the bush. No, he was not there. So I went on down to the river to see if he'd decided to do a bit of fishing on his own. No, my fishing gear was still hidden and there was no sign of him. The way the sunlight hit the water, I could see the fish were just itching to jump onto my line, but I knew I could not sit there calmly reeling them in until I knew where he was. Next I checked out the back of the baseball field, but there was no sign of him. So I climbed up top of our favourite hill, but no luck. I stood on my toes and peered off into the distance in all 4 directions, but still no sign of him. He must have gone off on an adventure of his own, I decided. I would just have to think like a dinosaur and work out where a dinosaur would go. Maybe he was lonely, seeing that he was the only dinosaur that he or I knew. Neither of us had ever seen another dinosaur, not anywhere. Well, except for those big piles of bones in the museum once or twice a year. That's it, I thought. That's where I found him. I bet that's where he's gone to. So the next day, right after school, I got the bus down to the museum. Hiding from the guards, I slid right into the dinosaur gallery and looked, but he wasn't there. I thought he might be hiding behind one of the display cases, so I gave one of our secret whistle signals, but he wasn't there. This is a puzzle, I thought. Where can he be? I waited a couple of days to see if he would come back by himself, but he did not put in an appearance, so I felt the time had come to consult my old friend and advisor, Captain Jack. Captain Jack was the skipper of the biggest and strongest tugboat in the harbour. He was extremely wise, and I had found that he knew the answer to every question that a girl could ever think of asking. Right after school, the next day, I laced up my billy cart and slid down the hill to the port. As my cart picked up speed, I could see Captain Jack's boat heading into the harbour to dock at the wharf. His tug was the only one with a red and black striped funnel. "Hello, matey," said Captain Jack as I parked my billy cart on the wharf. "Permission to come aboard, Captain?" I saluted. "Permission granted, matey." As we sat in the wheelhouse drinking large mugs of hot chocolate, I told Captain Jack about the puzzle of the wayward dinosaur. "Seems like you've got a real mystery on your hands," said the captain. "A real mystery, the like of which I have never heard tell in all my years of going to sea." He got out his seaman's log and started to write. Number 1, missing dinosaur. Number 2, last seen. Number 3, previous haunts. Number 4, favourite foods. Number 5, predilection for mischief. Number 6, wanderability. Number 7, known associates. Number 8, geographical knowledge. Number 9, family background. Number 10, mountain climbing ability. "So," said Captain Jack, "to solve any puzzle you need a plan of attack." He pushed the sea log over to me. "This is our plan of attack. Do you think we need to add to the list?" I thought not, so I said so. "Well, this is a good start in the puzzle of the wayward dinosaur then," and the captain began to fill his pipe. "Need to have a bit of a think," he said. "We need to work out how many of these points we have the answers to. Okay, we know the answer to 1. We have a missing dinosaur. So when did you last see him?" "Day before the day before yesterday," I said, and Captain Jack wrote it down in his log. "Previous haunts? Schoolhouse, creek, oh yes, and the museum. That's where I found him. Well, he found me, actually. I've checked them all. He's not there." "Favourite food?" said the captain. "Peanuts, tomatoes and cabbage," I said. "Predilection for mischief." Captain Jack underlined it, so I knew it was important. "So," he said, "does he get into lots of mischief?" I thought for a bit. "Not usually," I said. "And how about your dinosaur's wanderability factor?" asked Captain Jack. "Not so sure about that," I said, as I wasn't really sure. You see, I've never asked him what he gets up to when I'm at school. Maybe he gets tired or bored and goes off for adventures while I'm learning my times table. Can't say I'd blame him. "Okay, we'll put a question mark against wanderability and make an educated guess later," said the captain with a smile. "Any known associates?" "The only one I know about is me," I said. "So you're his only friend," and the captain marked it down in his log. "How about his geographical knowledge?" "Well, he knows his way to my school and home again, and he knows the way to my secret fishing hole." "So," said the captain, "we will assume that his geographical knowledge is quite good." "Any history of disappearances in his family?" asked the captain. "That comes into the family background category." "I don't know anything about his family," I said. "I think all his family members are dead and just rearranged bones down at the museum. I've never even seen a live dinosaur before." "Not me either," said the captain. "So I guess we can conclude that all of his family members have well and truly disappeared." "And how's his mountain climbing ability?" "He can climb up the second floor stairs at school, but of course he doesn't do that anymore," I added hurriedly. "So," said the captain, "he's pretty nimble on his feet," and he wrote it down in his sea log. "Well, going through the list," said the captain as his eye ran down the page, "I can't say that we really have an answer. I wonder if he can swim." But I wasn't any help there, because when he fell in while we were fishing, I'd pushed him up the bank, so I wasn't sure if he could swim or not. "Tell you what," said the captain when he saw my long face, "I'll alert all the other boat skippers to be on the lookout for a wayward dinosaur, and I'll get them to spread the word all over town that we are searching high and low for your dinosaur friend. That should do the trick. And," said the captain as he pulled something out of his top pocket, "to cheer you up, I just happen to have here 2 tickets for the circus, and it opens tonight. That should make you feel better." Well, it did make me feel a bit better. I'll admit, though, I was still worried about my dinosaur. What if he was hurt or injured or hungry or thirsty? But I figured there was no point in wasting perfectly good circus tickets, so I thanked the captain and agreed to meet him in front of the big top after dinner tonight. When I got home, I was surprised to find that my mother knew all about our circus plans, because Captain Jack had talked to her about it before he even told me. I scrubbed my nails extra hard that night to make sure I was clean and presentable for an exciting night at the circus with the captain. I wanted him to be proud of me. We had front row seats. I could smell the sawdust, and one of the clowns almost threw a bucket of water all over us. He threatened to a few times, and just as it seemed we were definitely marked out for a thorough drenching, his arm twisted and he aimed further over into the ring, and we only received a light splashing. The lions and tigers were the most ferocious animals I've ever seen. I held my breath when the lion tamer put his head in their mouths, not once, but 3 times. I felt sure they would chomp down on him, but I guess they weren't very hungry. The biggest elephant knelt down in front of us and gave me a big red rose with his trunk. I've got it sitting in some water on my windowsill. Then at interval, Captain Jack said he'd arrange for us to go around the back and watch them feeding some of the animals. We had just gone through the back flap of a tent when a monkey snatched the captain's hat off his head and disappeared up a tree. And then I saw him. It was my dinosaur, all right. He was sitting in a cage looking very sad and lonely. Boy, was I happy to see him, and he let out a roar as soon as he saw me. One of the animal wranglers from the circus had seen him waiting behind the bush for me to get out of school. He thought it would be a great attraction for the circus, so he'd got a net and captured my very own dinosaur. Well, it took Captain Jack quite some time to get the circus owner to agree to let him go. He said he wasn't sure that the dinosaur belonged to us and that he would give us a test, and if we passed the test and convinced him, we could have my dinosaur back. First he asked me what his name was, but I couldn't answer because I'd never given him a name. The circus owner looked very dubious at that. He scratched his head like he was thinking real hard about what the next test should be. Finally he said, "What do you feed him on? What meat does he eat?" Well, I said I didn't know what meat he ate. He looked like that. When I said that, he looked like it was the end of everything. Desperate to get him back, I blurted out, "His favourite foods are peanuts, tomatoes and cabbage." The circus owner looked very dubious. Even Captain Jack looked surprised. But as luck would have it, one of the circus workers was carrying a box of food for the monkeys, and right in there was some peanuts, tomatoes and cabbage. So the circus owner got him to put down the box and hand me some peanuts, tomatoes and cabbage. And my poor dinosaur was so hungry that he gobbled them down so fast he got hiccups. The circus owner was finally convinced, so he opened the cage and gave me back my dinosaur. I really must think of a name for him. I was so happy as we walked home with my dinosaur by my side. The captain was afraid that the same thing might happen again, so he decided that every day while I was at school, he would take my dinosaur out on his boat with him. That way we'd know where he was, and no harm would come to him while I was busy learning my times table at school. The captain laid in a supply of peanuts, tomatoes and cabbage on board the tugboat in case my dinosaur gets hungry while he's out on the high seas. He also felt it would be a good idea to give him a name and to have it engraved on a collar so the next time a circus comes to town, they'll know he belongs to me. So we had a long discussion, and the captain wrote a lot of names down in his sea log. Finally, I said, "He's a bit of a wanderer and he likes to roam, so I'm going to call him Roman the Wayward Dinosaur." The captain thought that such a name was most appropriate, so he wrote it down in his sea log in capital letters and underlined it too. So now you know that the story's name was Roman the Wayward Dinosaur. And you just never know when you might come across a dinosaur in the museum. You know, Hawaii is a microcosm of the world with people here from all over the world, and Noa Noa Hawaii is a microcosm of the traditional arts of the world with beautiful patterns from many countries. They've been in business for 38 years with wonderful Hawaii designed boutique clothing. Their hand-dyed and handmade clothes have patterns that are based on traditional kapa and tapa designs from Hawaii, Polynesia, Micronesia, Indonesia, even New Zealand and Africa. So check out all of the wonderful items that Noa Noa has on their website, which is www.noanoahawaii.com. So I'll be back next week, so bye for now.